You're listening to the Email Expert Podcast, where you get real examples, real strategies, and expert advice with your host, Daniel Dayette.
Hey friends, welcome back. In our last episode, we talked about subject lines that get massive open rates. If you missed that, go check it out. That's where I reveal some rarely known free tools. Today's episode, as promised from the last episode, we're going to dig into a little bit about the age-old question, how do you grow a big email list? Now, before we do that, let's kind of set things up for people who are newbies to this stuff, who don't know much about email marketing. So first of all, what is an email list? What is a newsletter, as some people call it? So if you use something like MailChimp, Aweber, any kind of email marketing software, you can obviously build a database. And, in the United States and Canada, whether it's the CAN-SPAM Act or the CASL, Canadian Internet Spam Laws, anywhere in North America, there are laws protecting how you can and cannot contact or collect or build your database. So I'm not going to get into that kind of stuff, but what I want to mention is that most people sign up to the list themselves via a opt-in box. So they're opting in, they're choosing to sign up to the email list. So the trick is, and I don't want this to sound too shysterish or whatever you want to call it, but scammy, but basically we want people to choose to join the list, obviously. That's how you build a proper email list. You want to find a way to to have people falling over themselves to jump on the list because they want what's inside. So to do that, there are various types of technologies you can install on your website or have somebody else install. Somebody from my team or somebody else's team that can install something on your site that has a box where somebody can put their name, email address, and click submit, and then get a confirmation email, or just be automatically on the list depending on how you set things up. So that's the newbie stuff. Now let's dig into stuff that's a little bit more advanced now that we've covered that. So let's start off by talking about what's not working anymore. Okay, so when I first got started in online marketing, everybody always had a newsletter opt-in box on the right-hand side of their website, and that was the way to do it. As crazy as it is back then, you just had to say, sign up to my newsletter, and people would, because there wasn't that many websites out there. So if you were a dog lover and you stumbled across somebody who had set up, back then it was a lot more technical, a newsletter for dog lovers, you wouldn't have to offer anything in return for signing up. They would just sign up. And back then it wasn't unusual to get a reasonably high turnout for that. Skip ahead to today, people are still using a newsletter sign-up box on the right-hand side or left-hand side of their website, but now you'll see free opt-in, free when you opt in, a mini course or an ebook or whatever. And usually these are kind of a generic thing. They don't specifically cover something. They'll be like, free book, 7 tips on this or whatever. You also see to this day, people still using timer-based pop-ups, which means, after about 8 seconds, something bounces in front of your face. Even big brands often still use these. Footer opt-in boxes. So on the very bottom of the website, an opt-in box, sometimes they're floating on the bottom, 20 pixels on the bottom of the site kind of thing. One-page landing pages with no content. We've all seen these where you've got a picture in the background, an opt-in box dead center, where, there's a box that says, click here to download something, and when you click on that, it pops up a box that has the name and email address. And exit pop-ups. These are the boxes that pop up when you try to leave the website. It's almost like a bait and switch kind of thing where you're like, you land on the page, you go, oh, this doesn't have anything I want. You about to hit the back button, and boom, something pops up that tries to give you something for free in return for your email address. These strategies, for the most part, don't work anymore. I mean, They do get some results, which is why people are still using them, but they're not amazing results. And in fact, if you're the type of person who's still using those technologies, what you don't know is you just have not seen what great looks like. Because that might be good to you, that might be okay to you to get 1 or 2 email addresses a day, you're making steady progress, whatever, and that certainly does add up. But, if you're looking to get, 10% or higher opt-in rates, those technologies simply aren't going to do it for you. So let's talk about what's hot right now. And I almost don't want to be giving this away, but hopefully people are going to get great value out of this. They're going to go to Spreaker and click like on the podcast or whatever. Comment, tell me how great this was and how valuable learning this was. But I'm going to share what's actually hot right now, what's working like gangbusters. I'm not going to share the technology because that would take way too long, and I want to keep these podcasts nice and short and sweet for now. But let's talk about what's actually working. So first of all, the easy one, content unlocks. And I guess I'll mention a couple of plugins just to help people out. So content unlocks you can do really easy with a plugin called Bloom, which is part of the Elegant Themes, but there are others, I'm sure. There's lots of other ones that I could mention too. But anyway, content unlocks. So what's that? Well, imagine you're reading an article. Actually, who does this a lot is the Wall Street Journal. But imagine you're reading an article and you get to see about a third of the article, but to view the rest of it, you have to opt in. And you know what? If it's a really juicy article, or if it's something you're really interested in, you're going to unlock that article so you can read the rest of it. Especially if it's a how-to piece, or I hate to say it, but even obviously gossip pieces and stuff like that would work too. Any kind of drama, but some niches that might be appropriate and some it wouldn't be. But anyway, so content unlocks, that's what that is. Number 2, content upgrades. Now this is my personal favorite. So in fact, you can see this if you go to www.answerswanted.com, my website, Answers Wanted. On there, I've got a couple of content upgrades that work really well. One is, how to revive a dead email list on my blog, where, I tell you how to revive a dead email list. But if you want to actually get my free text files, the actual emails I've used to revive actual dead lists, you have to click on that. And then, of course, you get my files. Another opt-in I've got is the, just trying to think here, the stories one, where I talk about stories that people tell that have made millions of dollars, and then I say, well, do you want the actual formula to write those stories? Again, click here to, download that template. Another one that is really popular right now that isn't getting talked about a lot is called Advertorial pages. Now, Advertorial has been used for years to sell stuff and kind of go under the radar. You see them in like Popular Mechanics magazine and the National Geographic magazine, but they are basically an article that looks in every way like an article, like an editorial in a newspaper or something, but they're an ad. That's why they're called an advertorial. Now the trick is to leave somebody hanging, which we talked about in episode 1 of this podcast, but either way, that's how those work. So you're basically just kind of create a cliffhanger situation where somebody has to opt in to get the rest of the content. Facebook really likes these right now because they're getting sick and tired of people using those one-page landers. They really like pages that have a bit of content to them, some meat to them on the bone. So webinars and software. So if you think about it, this is number 4. So number 4, webinars and software. If you think about anything you have to register for, right? Register for a free piece of software or register to sign up to a webinar. These are things where it makes sense, right? Human beings, we know that in order to use something regularly like a piece of software, I need a username and password. Well, that's also a blind opt-in. It's something where somebody has to sign up, but they're inadvertently not realizing that's also given us permission to market to them. So building a piece of software, even just with one feature, just so you can at least start building the list and, itching where they scratch and solving one problem, that's huge, right? Okay, so the last part, forgive my throat here, I'm a little sick, but quizzes is the fifth hot thing. Quizzes are huge for several reasons. First of all, people love to get the results of the quiz and kind of do that self-exploratory journey of learning a bit more about themselves. But for you as a marketer, you're also collecting that data and learning more about your target audience while growing your list. Nothing is better than that. Nothing is better than figuring out exactly what your people want, segmenting your list according to what they want, and growing your list at the same time. That is hot. I mean, if you can imagine literally being able to both, help somebody learn something about themselves they didn't know, while at the same time, being able to segment your data and go, okay, we've got a group of people who like this and a group of people who believe that, or want this or need that, etc. Now, as usual, as we've kind of built a bit of a tradition in this show on episode 3 here, I'm going to tell you that straight up, none of this stuff will work for you. None of it. Not the stuff that, hasn't worked in the previous few months or year, that used to in the past. And none of the hot stuff I just shared a few seconds ago, unless you know how to find a starving crowd. Unless you know your customers' pains, their problems, their fears, and their needs so well that you can craft something that they desire or that they can easily get addicted to. So in the next episode, which I guarantee there's going to be a huge pile of people tuning into, and you won't want to miss, we're going to talk about how to find a starving crowd. We're going to talk about how to figure out what your ideal customer would, salivate over, and and how to put that sort of ideal customer together, how to sort of paint that picture so that you can write to those people and always get their attention. So that's going to be incredible value stuff. You really don't want to miss that. So in order to build a content unlock people would willingly unlock, a content upgrade somebody would want to get the next edition of, an advertorial somebody would actually read, a webinar somebody would want to sign up to, a piece of software that itches where they scratch and solves something, or a quiz they would genuinely want to explore and find out more about. You need to know where the starving crowd is, who they are, and what they want. So, that's it for today. Thanks for signing up. Once again, if you want to show me that these shows are kind of giving you some value, that you're liking them and appreciating them, go ahead and let us know by going to Spreaker.com, finding the Email Expert Podcast, and clicking the little heart button. I'm sure this will be on iTunes as well, but any way you can to just kind of let us know that you're finding some value in this. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Email Expert Podcast. To get your free guides, templates, and more, join us at www.emailexpertpodcast.com.